The champagne glass shattered against white marble. Then came the slap. 500 people, every camera in the room recording. And Natalie Thornton Ashford, 6 months pregnant, wearing Valentino, standing in the most prestigious ballroom in New York, felt her husband's hand connect with her face. The sound echoed. Conversation stopped. The world held its breath. What happened next changed everything. Because Natalie's father was Robert Thornton, and Robert Thornton doesn't forgive. He destroys. 3 phone calls. That's all it took. 3 phone calls before the markets opened in Tokyo. And Marcus Ashford, billionaire, CEO, the man who just hit his pregnant wife in front of Manhattan's elite, watched $800 million disappear in 4 hours. But that's just the beginning, because this isn't a story about a slap. It's a story about what happens when a predator finally faces consequences. When a woman who's been gaslit for 3 years finds her voice. When a father uses his power to protect instead of profit. This is a story about $8.3 million stolen and hidden. About 12 affairs spanning 7 years. About 7 other women who survived the same nightmare. About a 26-year-old mistress who smirked while a pregnant woman fell. About audio recordings that captured every threat, every manipulation, every moment of calculated cruelty. This is a story about a man who planned everything, who married for money and status, who got his wife pregnant to trap her, who wrote clauses into a prenup 3 years before he'd need them, who believed he was untouchable. He was wrong. Because while Marcus Ashford was checking his phone, watching his empire collapse, Robert Thornton was making more calls to district attorneys, to federal prosecutors, to the IRS, to everyone who mattered. And Natalie was finally ready to fight back. What you're about to hear is the complete story. 100 minutes. 10 chapters. The whole truth about what happens when a billionaire hits his pregnant wife at a gala and her father bankrupts him within minutes. This is a story about survival, about justice, about a woman who thought her life was ending but was actually just beginning. This is a story about resurrection. So settle in, get comfortable, because this journey goes deep. From that ballroom to a hospital room, from depositions to revelations, from betrayal to breakthrough, from breaking point to breaking free. And I promise you this, by the end you'll understand that the slap wasn't the worst thing Marcus did to Natalie. Not even close. The worst thing was making her believe she deserved it. But she didn't, and neither does anyone else. This is her story. This is their reckoning. This is what happens when impossible becomes possible. Let's begin. The champagne glass shattered against white marble. Then came the slap. Natalie Thornton Ashford stood in the ballroom of the Metropolitan Museum, 6 months pregnant, wearing custom Valentino worth more than most people's cars. The annual Tech Innovation Gala. 500 guests, every major media outlet in New York. Her hand moved instinctively to her belly as Marcus's palm connected with her cheek. The sound echoed. Conversation stopped. Silverware stilled. The string quartet's Vivaldi died mid-note. Camera flashes exploded like lightning. "You embarrassed me." Marcus's voice cut through the silence. His hand still raised, still threatening. Amanda Pierce stood 3 feet away in a red dress, too tight, too young, too obvious. She wasn't even trying to hide the smirk. Natalie's ear rang, high-pitched, constant. The taste of copper flooded her mouth. Her vision blurred at the edges. "Marcus," her voice barely audible. A whisper, a plea. "The baby. That's all you ever talk about." He grabbed her arm, tight, bruising. His fingers dug into her skin hard enough to leave marks. "The baby, the baby, the baby. What about what I need? What about me?" The room held its breath. Security moved forward. 2 men in black suits, uncertain. Nobody hits a pregnant woman at the Met. Nobody knows the protocol for this kind of disaster. Robert Thornton appeared from nowhere, 62 years old, silver hair perfectly styled, steel gray eyes that had stared down senators and CEOs. He didn't rush, didn't shout. He walked with the certainty of a man who'd destroyed empires before breakfast. "Take your hands off my daughter." The temperature in the room dropped 10 degrees. Marcus released Natalie, stepped back, then laughed. Actually laughed. The sound was wrong. Too loud, too forced. Oh, here comes Daddy to save the... Robert's phone was already out. 3 calls. That's all it takes when you own half of Wall Street and have favors owed by the other half. Natalie watched her father's face. Calm, cold, calculating. The face he wore when closing deals that ruined competitors. You have 10 minutes before the markets open in Tokyo, Robert said quietly. Too quietly, the kind of quiet that precedes earthquakes. I'd suggest you enjoy them. Natalie's knees buckled. Her best friend Violet Harper caught her. The room spun. Up became down. Down became sideways. Her father's jacket smelled like cigars and safety. Like childhood. Like before Marcus convinced her his volatility was passion. His jealousy was love. His control was protection. The paramedics arrived. Someone, Violet probably, had already called them. Someone draped a coat over her shoulders. Cashmere. Warm. The cameras wouldn't stop flashing. Pop, 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 each one capturing her humiliation in high definition. She saw Amanda whispering to Marcus, close, intimate. His face transformed. Confusion flickered first, then comprehension, then fear. Raw, animal fear. He was checking his phone. Again, again, again. The screen lit his face blue in the dimming ballroom. Robert leaned down, kissed Natalie's forehead. The gesture so gentle, it broke something in her chest. I've got this, sweetheart. I've always got this. But did he? Could anyone fix this? Could anyone erase 500 witnesses and 10 million people who would see the video before sunrise? The paramedic, young kind eyes, name tag reading Martinez, shone a light in her eyes. Mrs. Ashford, can you tell me where you are? The Metropolitan Museum of Art. Her voice sounded strange, distant, like it belonged to someone else. The Petrie Court, Annual Tech Innovation Gala. I'm at the place where my husband hit me in front of everyone who matters. Good, you're oriented, that's good. Martinez checked her pupils. Any dizziness? Nausea? Yes, but I've been nauseous for 6 months. It's called being pregnant with a monster's child. Violet squeezed her hand, hard. A reminder. The baby isn't a monster. The baby is innocent. Natalie looked down. Her dress, ice blue silk, chosen because Marcus said it made her look washed out, worn anyway because it was her dress, her choice, had a small tear at the hem. When had that happened? During the fall? During the grab? Her phone buzzed. Once, twice, 20 times. The vibrations constant against her clutch. Text messages, calls, social media notifications, exploding like a bomb going off in slow motion. Grace Thornton pushed through the crowd, still in her gala gown, still perfect, always perfect. Diamonds at her throat catching the light. Her mother's face aged 10 years in 10 seconds when she saw the handprint already forming on Natalie's cheek. Purple, angry, visible. Oh, baby. 2 words, that's all it took. Natalie broke, completely. The sobs came from somewhere deep, primal. The kind of crying that happens when you finally stop pretending everything's fine. When you stop making excuses. When you stop saying he didn't mean it. He was stressed. He was drunk. He was tired. He was anything but what he actually was. Grace held her, rocked her, right there on the floor of the Petrie Court, surrounded by 500 of New York's elite. Rocked her like she did when Natalie was small, and nightmares seemed big, but were actually nothing compared to the nightmare of marriage. I stayed, Natalie whispered against her mother's shoulder. Even when I knew, even when, shh, not your fault, never your fault. But it felt like her fault. The signs were there, all of them, written in neon. The controlling behavior she called protective. The jealous rages she called passionate. The isolation from friends he called devotion. The financial control he called partnership. The verbal abuse he called honesty. Marcus was being escorted out, security on both sides. He was still checking his phone, his face getting paler. Paler, whatever he was seeing, it was bad. Robert's 3 phone calls were working. The empire was crumbling in real time. Amanda followed Marcus. Her heels clicked on marble. Click, click, click. She looked back once, Met Natalie's eyes. No apology there. No remorse. Just calculation. Just a woman who'd chosen sides and was starting to realize she'd chosen wrong. The paramedics wanted to take Natalie to the hospital. Protocol for head trauma. Protocol for pregnant women who've been assaulted. That word, assaulted. It hung in the air like smoke. Mount Sinai, Robert said. Not a suggestion, a command. The best. Dad, you're going to the hospital. Your mother will ride with you. Violet will follow. I have work to do. Work. The word carried weight. Robert Thornton's work meant destruction, meant bankruptcy, meant ruin. Marcus had made one mistake. He'd hurt Robert's daughter in public. He'd humiliated the Thornton name. In Robert's world, that was an unforgivable sin. Natalie let them guide her to the ambulance. The night air was cold. October in New York. The city smelled like exhaust and roasted nuts from the vendor on the corner. Normal smells, normal life happening while her world ended. She climbed into the ambulance, sat on the gurney. The vinyl was cold against her legs. Grace sat beside her, held her hand. Violet climbed in last. Your phone, Violet said quietly. Don't look at it, not yet. But Natalie was already looking, couldn't help it. The video was everywhere. Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, Facebook. Someone had live streamed the whole thing. The champagne glass, the argument, the slap, her falling, her father's face, all of it. 10 million views, 20 million, 30 million. The hashtag was already trending. #1 worldwide. Hashtag billionaire monster. The comments scrolled past, thousands per second. Most supportive, some vicious, some blaming her. What did she do to provoke him? She probably deserved it. Gold digger getting what's coming. But most were different. I've been there. My ex did the same thing. This is what abuse looks like. She's so brave. I hope she leaves him. Natalie locked her phone, put it face down, closed her eyes. In the darkness behind her eyelids, she saw it all again. The glass, the hand, the moment when everything changed, when the private became public, when the secret became breaking news. The ambulance siren wailed as they pulled into traffic. The sound was oddly comforting, a sound that meant help, that meant safety, that meant maybe, just maybe, this was the end of something instead of just another chapter in an endless nightmare. Her baby kicked, strong, insistent, a reminder that some things mattered more than embarrassment, more than reputation, more than anything except survival. Mount Sinai emergency room smelled like antiseptic and fear. 2:15 in the morning. The hospital at night operated on a different frequency. Quieter, darker, more honest. Doctor. Ellen Reeves performed the ultrasound with hands that had seen everything but still showed concern. 48 years old, chief of obstetrics. The best in New York. Of course, Robert had called her personally. Of course, she'd come in at 2 a.m. Baby's heartbeat is strong. Relief flooded Ellen's face. 145. Perfect. Normal range. Your daughter is a fighter. Natalie touched the screen. Her daughter, moving, alive, completely unaware that her father just became the most hated man in America, that her mother's face was already on magazine covers, that she would be born into a media circus. The handprint on Natalie's face had darkened, purple spreading to black, the shape of fingers clearly visible. Evidence. Undeniable. Permanent. Violet Harper photographed it. Flash. 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 Different angles. Documentation. Evidence. Always evidence. That's what lawyers do. That's what friends do when love goes wrong and you need proof that you're not crazy. That it really happened. That it was as bad as you remember. It wasn't always like this, Natalie heard herself say. Her voice sounded hollow. Empty. He used to bring me flowers. Write me notes. Tell me I was beautiful. No. Violet's tone was sharp, loving but sharp, the voice of someone who'd been biting her tongue for 3 years. We're not doing that. Not tonight. Not ever again. Grace Thornton entered like winter wind, still in her gala gown, still diamonds at her throat, but her makeup was smeared, her perfect composure cracked. Her daughter's face made her age 10 years in 10 seconds. Oh, baby. Natalie broke again. The sobs came from somewhere deeper this time, from the place where you store all the times you almost left. All the times, you told yourself it would get better. All the times you believed the apology meant something. Grace held her. Solid, real, unconditional. I stayed, Natalie whispered, even when Violet told me. Even when you said something was wrong. Even when I knew. God, I knew. Shh, not your fault, never your fault. But it felt like her fault. The first time he grabbed her arm too hard. She'd made excuses. He was stressed. Work was difficult. The second time he threw a glass. She'd cleaned it up. Told herself he didn't mean it. The third time he pushed her. She'd fallen. Blamed herself for standing too close. For provoking him. For not being good enough. The gaslighting had been subtle. Gradual. Like a frog in boiling water. You don't notice until you are cooked. Her phone sat on the hospital tray. Still buzzing. Constant. Relentless. 73 missed calls. 92 texts. 412 social media notifications. The number kept climbing. Hashtag Billionaire Monster was trending worldwide. #1 in 47 countries. The video had been viewed 50 million times. Newspapers were already drafting morning editions. Her face would be on every front page. Violet scrolled through her tablet. Professional, focused, already building the case in her mind. Preliminary reports coming in. 6 major hedge funds have pulled their investments. Marcus's stock dropped 42% before trading was halted. Your father's consortium bought the debt on his downtown development project. They're calling it in, all of it, today. How is that possible? Natalie's head throbbed, dull, constant, the taste of blood still in her mouth. That fast? Your father's been preparing for this for a long time. Violet's smile was grim, satisfied, the smile of someone who'd watched their best friend suffer and couldn't do anything until now. He just needed the right moment, the provocation, the public evidence. Now he has it, and he's not wasting time. Grace smoothed Natalie's hair, the gesture so maternal it hurt. Robert was always good at warfare. He just needed you to be ready, to be safe, to have undeniable proof. Safe. The word was almost funny. Natalie had spent 3 years not being safe. 3 years walking on eggshells. 3 years calculating every word, every action, every breath, trying to prevent the explosion that would happen anyway because Marcus didn't need a reason. He just needed an audience or a bad day or a reminder that he could. DeReeves returned with test results. No concussion, no fractures. Baby is perfectly healthy, but I want you to stay overnight for observation. Given the circumstances, it's protocol. Protocol for pregnant women who've been hit by their billionaire husbands at charity galas. They probably didn't teach that in medical school. The private room was quiet, dim, beige walls and machines that beep softly, monitoring, constant. Natalie lay in the hospital bed wearing a gown that tied in the back, vulnerable, exposed. Grace sat in the chair beside her, holding her hand, not letting go. Violet paced, typing on her phone, already planning, already strategizing. I need you to listen carefully, Violet said. Her lawyer voice, serious. Marcus is going to spin this. He's probably meeting with his crisis management team right now. They'll say you provoked him, that you attacked first, that he was defending himself, that the video is edited, out of context, anything to shift blame. But 500 people saw, doesn't matter. His team will create doubt. That's what they do, but we're going to be faster, smarter, better. Tomorrow morning, James Whitmore will file for divorce, full custody, restraining order. We're going to bury him in paperwork before he can spin the narrative. Tomorrow morning, 8 hours away, Natalie tried to imagine it. Divorce, the word that had lived in her head for 2 years but never made it to her mouth. The word that meant failure, meant admitting she'd been wrong, meant public humiliation. Except the public humiliation had already happened. 50 million people watched it happen. There was nothing left to hide. What about money, Natalie asked. The practical question, the one that kept women trapped. The prenup has a fidelity clause, Violet interrupted. Very specific. If Marcus is unfaithful, he gets nothing. Zero. And thanks to Trevor Cross's investigation, we can prove 7 affairs. Amanda Pierce is just the latest. 7, the number hung in the air. 7 women, 7 betrayals. 7 times Marcus had looked Natalie in the eye and lied. "I'm so stupid," Natalie whispered. "I should have known." "No." Grace's voice was steel. "He's a predator. They're good at hiding. That's what makes them dangerous." The night dragged on. Minutes felt like hours. Hours felt like years. Nurses came and went, checking vitals, monitoring the baby. Everyone professional, but their eyes held pity, the kind that made Natalie feel small. At 4:30 in the morning, unable to sleep, Natalie got up, walked to the bathroom. The fluorescent lights were harsh, unforgiving. She looked at herself in the mirror. The woman staring back was a stranger. Hollow eyes, bruised face, hospital gown hanging off shoulders that had carried too much for too long. She sat on the closed toilet lid, fully dressed in a hospital gown. Couldn't take it off because then she'd have to acknowledge the bruises on her arms, the fingerprints on her bicep, the physical proof that this was real. Her phone sat in her hand. She unlocked it, locked it, unlocked it, locked it, unlocked it. The compulsion was strong, irresistible. She couldn't look at the video, couldn't not look, needed to see it from outside, to understand what the world saw, to know if it was as bad as it felt. She pressed play. The video was crystal clear. Someone had been recording from the perfect angle. She watched herself laugh at something Violet said. Watched Marcus approach. Watched the champagne glass slip from her hand. Watched the argument. The escalation. The slap. Watched herself fall. Watched her father appear. Watched everything change. She looked like a ghost in the video. Pale, thin despite the pregnancy. Diminished. A woman who'd been disappearing for years and nobody noticed because she smiled at the right parties and wore the right dresses and never complained. The woman in the video was someone she barely recognized. Someone small, someone scared. Someone who'd forgotten what she looked like before Marcus convinced her she was lucky he loved her at all. Natalie locked her phone, put it down, looked at herself in the mirror again. This had to end, tonight, now. This version of herself had to die so a different version could live. A version that remembered she was Robert Thornton's daughter, Grace Thornton's child. Someone with resources and intelligence and people who loved her. She stood, washed her face, gentle around the bruise. The water was cold, shocking, real. When she returned to the room, the sun was starting to rise, pink and orange streaking across the Manhattan skyline. A new day, the first day of the rest of her life. The cliché was actually true. Grace was asleep in the chair. Violet was gone, probably coordinating with James, making calls, building the case. Natalie climbed back into bed, put her hand on her belly, felt her daughter move, strong, certain, alive. "I'm going to protect you," she whispered. A promise, a vow. "He'll never hurt you, I swear it, even if it costs me everything. You'll be safe." The baby kicked in response, as if she understood, as if she was saying, "I believe you." Outside the hospital room in a penthouse across town, Marcus Ashford stared at his phone as his net worth dropped by $800 million in 4 hours. By morning, it would be gone completely. Dawn broke over Manhattan in shades of amber and gold. The city woke up to headlines that would define the news cycle for weeks. Every major outlet led with the same story, the same video, the same image of Natalie falling. Marcus standing over her, hand still raised. Natalie hadn't slept. The hospital had discharged her at 6 a.m. with instructions to rest. Laughable. How do you rest when your life is disintegrating in real time? The penthouse, their penthouse, technically still theirs, felt like a museum, a monument to a marriage that never really existed. Everything was exactly where she'd left it 8 hours ago. The champagne flute she'd been drinking from before the gala, the lipstick on the bathroom counter, the dress she'd tried on and rejected lying across the bed. But everything was different. She was different. Robert's team had moved fast. By 6 a.m., accounts were frozen, assets seized. The forensic accountants had been working through the night. They found everything Marcus had been hiding. Every dirty secret, every illegal transaction, every betrayal. $8.3 million. James Whitmore spread documents across the dining table. 55 years old, family attorney for 3 generations of Thorntons. He drafted the prenup, knew every clause, every loophole, transferred to accounts in Amanda Pierce's name over the course of 18 months. We can prove embezzlement, financial abuse. This isn't just divorce, Natalie. This is criminal. Natalie's hands shook. She held her coffee mug tighter. The ceramic was warm, real, grounding. $8 million, their money, her trust fund contributions, her inheritance, gone, given to his 26-year-old mistress while telling Natalie they needed to be careful with spending, while questioning her grocery bills, while making her feel guilty for buying maternity clothes. The nausea had nothing to do with pregnancy. There's more. James looked uncomfortable. This man who never looked uncomfortable, who'd negotiated billion-dollar deals with a poker face. The prenup has a fidelity clause, very specific, very detailed. If he's unfaithful, he gets nothing, zero. But there's a counter clause. What counter clause? Grace's voice could freeze hellfire. She stood by the window, backlit by morning sun, looking like the society queen she'd been before she chose to be a mother instead. If the marriage ends due to unsubstantiated allegations, Marcus gets 50% of marital assets plus $50 million from the Thornton family trust. His lawyer wrote that clause 3 years ago, right after the wedding. Silence filled the room. Heavy, suffocating. This was always the plan, Violet said slowly. She sat across from Natalie, laptop open, files spread out, evidence everywhere. Get her pregnant, make her dependent, isolate her from friends and family, then create a scenario where he could claim she made false accusations. Play the victim, take the money, leave her with nothing. Natalie stood abruptly. The chair fell backward, crashed against hardwood. She walked to the window. 47 stories up. The city looked clean from here, organized, manageable, not like the chaos of her life. People walked on the streets below, tiny, insignificant, living their normal lives, going to work, buying coffee, existing without 50 million people watching their worst moment on repeat. The video, she whispered. Her breath fogged the glass. He didn't know about the cameras, didn't plan for 500 witnesses. No, James's smile was predatory, the smile of a lawyer who'd found the winning argument. He didn't. Every phone in that ballroom was recording. 500 witnesses saw him hit you. The prenup clause is void. He gets nothing. Worse than nothing. He's facing criminal charges. The words should have brought satisfaction. Relief, victory. Instead, Natalie felt hollow, empty. 3 years of her life wasted on a man who'd been planning to destroy her from the beginning. She'd ignored so many signs. The way he'd insisted on managing their finances. The way he'd slowly cut her off from friends. How lunch with Violet always led to fights. How visits with her parents were punished with days of silent treatment. How every joy was poisoned. Every achievement diminished. Every spark of independence crushed. The gaslighting had been masterful. She'd started questioning her own memory, her own perceptions, her own reality. When she said he'd thrown something, he'd say it slipped. When she said he'd pushed her, he'd say she'd stumbled. When she said he was cruel, he'd say she was too sensitive. Her phone rang. Unknown number. She answered before thinking. Natalie Ashford? A woman's voice. Young, scared, shaking. This is Lisa Bennett from Marcus's legal team. You don't know me, but A pause. Breathing. He's filing for full custody. This morning, he's claiming you're mentally unstable, that you provoked the incident, that you're unfit to be a mother. The line went dead. Natalie looked at her mother, her best friend, her lawyer, the people who'd been trying to save her for 3 years while she insisted everything was fine. He's going after the baby. The words hung in the air like a death sentence. Grace moved first, wrapped her arms around Natalie, held her while the reality sank in. Marcus wasn't just fighting for money. He was fighting for their child, for leverage, for control, for the ability to continue tormenting her forever. Over my dead body, Violet said. Her voice was ice, pure rage wrapped in silk. We have evidence. We have witnesses. We have everything. He's not taking that baby. He has his mother. Natalie's voice broke. Diane knows everyone, judges, politicians, child services. She bragged about it at Christmas, about how connected she is, about how the Ashford name means something. The Ashford name is worth nothing as of 7 a.m. this morning, James said flatly. He turned his laptop around, showed them the headlines. The stock market opened 20 minutes ago. Marcus's company stock is in free fall, down 78%. Trading halted. The board called an emergency meeting. He's being removed as CEO, effective immediately. The schadenfreude should have felt good. It didn't. It felt like watching a building collapse. Inevitable, destructive, dangerous even from a distance. Natalie's baby kicked, hard, insistent. A reminder that none of this was about revenge. It was about survival, about protecting an innocent life from a man who viewed people as property. I want to see the evidence, Natalie said, her voice steady now, certain. Everything, all of it. I need to understand what I married, what I let into my life, what I almost let near my daughter. James and Violet exchanged glances, the kind of silent communication that happens between professionals who've worked together for years. It's not easy to see, James warned. Once you know, you can't unknow. I don't want easy, I want truth. They spread it out, documents, photos, timelines, bank statements, text messages, emails, a comprehensive map of deception that spanned not just 3 years of marriage, but 5 years before that, back to when they first met, when Marcus had researched her family, her worth, her vulnerabilities. There were profiles, actual profiles, of her, her friends, her family, psychological assessments, strategies, like she was a mark, a target, a business acquisition. There were notes about her insecurities, the ones he'd exploit later, how she worried about being boring, about not being smart enough, about disappointing her parents, all the things she'd shared in intimate moments, all the things he'd weaponized. There were plans, detailed, methodical, how to isolate her, how to make her dependent, how to ensure she'd be too embarrassed to leave, too financially entangled to walk away, too afraid to speak up. There were other women, not 7, 12. 12 affairs spanning from before the wedding to last week, each one documented, each one a betrayal. Amanda Pierce was just the most recent, the most careless, the one who got caught. He's a sociopath, Violet said quietly. Clinical, textbook. This isn't passion or mistakes, this is calculated predation. Natalie read through it all, every page, every document, every piece of evidence that proved her instincts had been right all along. She wasn't crazy, wasn't oversensitive, wasn't dramatic. She was a victim of someone who'd made victimization his business model. The woman she'd been yesterday would have been devastated, would have blamed herself, would have asked what she did wrong, what she could have done differently. The woman she was becoming felt something different, vindication, rage, and underneath it all, a cold determination that Marcus Ashford would never hurt anyone again. The other women, Natalie said, her voice was steel. I want to talk to them. That's not, James started. I want to talk to them because this wasn't about her anymore. It was about a pattern, a predator, a man who'd been doing this for years and would continue unless someone stopped him. The deposition room smelled like old coffee and expensive furniture polish, the kind of room where fortunes changed hands and futures were decided. Conference Room B at Whitmore and Associates, 47th floor, windows overlooking Central Park. Marcus Ashford sat across from Natalie. 3 days of destruction showed on his face. Stubble, dark circles, wrinkled shirt. His usual swagger was gone, replaced by something desperate, something dangerous, a cornered animal. Diane Ashford sat beside her son, 65 years old, designer suit, pearls, the picture of old money elegance. Except the Ashford money wasn't old. It was debt. Robert's investigators had found that too. 15 years of living on credit. of maintaining appearances while drowning in obligations. The society wedding, the penthouse, the lifestyle. All smoke and mirrors. Marcus's lawyer was young, mid-30s, hungry, cheap. The good firms wouldn't touch him. Not after the video, not after the evidence, not after public opinion turned him into a monster. Mrs. Ashford, the lawyer shuffled papers, nervous, out of his depth. Can you describe your wife's mental state over the past year? Marcus leaned forward, eager, prepared. She's been erratic, emotional, volatile. The pregnancy hormones made her irrational, paranoid. She'd accuse me of things that never happened, create scenarios in her mind. Answer your own question, Mr. Ashford. James Whitmore's voice was silk over steel. Oh, wait, that wasn't your question. That was your coached narrative falling apart. The cheap lawyer flushed. Your Honor, there's no judge here, James interrupted. This is a deposition. Let's stick to facts. Mrs. Ashford, did you ever call the police regarding incidents with your husband? Yes, Natalie's voice was steady. She'd practiced this with Violet, with her therapist, with herself in the mirror at 3 a.m. when sleep wouldn't come. 7 times in 3 years. And did you ever press charges? No, Bishi. Why not? This was it, the moment, the truth she'd been too ashamed to speak, too afraid to acknowledge. Because he threatened me, said if I pressed charges, he'd make sure everyone knew I was crazy, that his mother had connections at Manhattan Family Court, that I'd never see our baby, that he'd destroy my reputation, my family, everything. Violet slid a tablet across the table. Let's discuss why she didn't press charges. Audio recording February 15th, 2 years ago. She pressed play. Marcus's voice filled the room. Clear, undeniable. If you call the cops again, I'll make sure everyone knows you're crazy. My mother has connections at Manhattan Family Court. You'll never see this baby. I'll make sure of it. I'll tell them about your depression, your anxiety. The medication you took in college, I'll paint you as unstable, unfit, dangerous. And they'll believe me because I'm Marcus Ashford and you're just my hysterical wife. Diane Ashford turned white, actually white, the blood draining from her face in real time. The recording continued. 15 minutes of threats, detailed, specific, methodical, descriptions of how he'd ruin her, how he'd take custody, how he'd make sure she had nothing, how he'd turn everyone against her, how she'd end up awakened and broken and begging him to take her back. This wasn't rage, this was calculation. This was a man who'd thought through every scenario, every possibility, every way to maintain control. Where did you get? Marcus stood, the chair scraped against polished wood. That's illegal. You can't record. Actually, Violet's smile was radiant. New York is a one-party consent state. Natalie recorded these conversations on advice of her therapist as documentation of ongoing abuse. Perfectly legal. Perfectly admissible. Perfectly damning. The cheap lawyer looked like he wanted to crawl under the table. This was supposed to be an easy case. A rich man versus his unstable wife. Except the wife had evidence, had witnesses, had everything. We also have testimony from 7 other women, James continued. 7 affairs, each one documented, each one willing to testify. Each one with similar stories of manipulation, coercion, and abuse. And we have financial records showing $8.3 million transferred to Amanda Pierce. Embezzlement from joint accounts. That's a felony, Mr. Ashford. Marcus's face transformed, rage replacing desperation. That money was mine. My earnings from a company built on Natalie's family connections and trust fund investments, Violet interrupted, which makes it marital property, which means transferring it to your mistress is theft. Grand larceny, 7 to 15 years. This is ridiculous, Diane interjected, her voice sharp, brittle. My son is a respected businessman, a pillar of the community. Your son is a criminal. Grace Thornton spoke for the first time. She'd been sitting quietly in the corner, observing. Now she stood, moved forward. Every inch the society queen she'd been. The woman who'd chaired benefits, who'd sat on boards, who knew everyone worth knowing. and you enabled him. Every step, every threat, every time he hurt my daughter, you made excuses. You're complicit, Diane, and I'll make sure everyone knows it." The threat hung in the air. Grace Thornton might have retired from society, but she still had power, still had influence, still had the ability to destroy reputations with a word at the right dinner party. The deposition continued for 6 hours, question after question, evidence piling up. The case against Marcus wasn't just strong, it was airtight, overwhelming, undeniable. By the time they finished, Marcus looked broken, small, the swagger completely gone. He'd bet everything on his ability to manipulate, to spin, to charm his way out. He hadn't counted on evidence, on witnesses, on a woman who'd been smart enough to document everything. Natalie gathered her things, stood to leave. Marcus caught her arm. "This isn't over," he hissed. Quiet, vicious. "You think you've won? You haven't. I'll fight this. I'll appeal. You'll lose." Natalie pulled her arm away, looked him in the eye, saw him clearly for the first time. Just a man, small and petty and cruel. Not a Gala, not untouchable. Just someone who'd been getting away with cruelty because nobody had stopped him before. "You'll lose everything. The money, the company, the reputation, and you'll never touch me or my daughter again." She walked out, didn't look back. Violet and Grace followed. The door closed behind them with a soft click. Final. Permanent. In the elevator, Natalie started shaking, adrenaline leaving her system. The reality of confrontation settling in. She'd stood up to him, looked him in the eye, refused to be small. The deposition break had been scheduled for 20 minutes. Natalie found herself in the building's garden. Small, hidden. The kind of space architects include, but nobody uses. She sat on the cold stone. November in New York. The air crisp, clean. She watched pigeons fight over a bagel. Fierce, determined, stupid and simple and beautiful. Life continuing, the world spinning, everything moving forward while she sat still. Her baby kicked, strong, insistent, a reminder that some things mattered more than revenge, more than justice, more than anything except the fierce, protective love of a mother who'd do anything to keep her child safe. While Natalie sat in a garden finding peace, Trevor Cross walked into Robert Thornton's office with information that would end Marcus Ashford completely. Trevor Cross had built his social media empire by understanding what people wanted to hide. He'd made billions by knowing secrets, by predicting scandals, by being 3 steps ahead of the news cycle. Now he sat in Robert Thornton's office, mahogany and leather, old money and older power, handing over a file that represented 2 years of private investigation. I knew Marcus was dirty. Trevor accepted the scotch. 30-year-old McAllen, the good stuff, reserved for allies and occasions. I just needed proof before I moved against him. He's been trying to poach my engineers, steal my patents, copy my designs. But going after someone like that requires leverage. You taught me that. Robert had mentored Trevor 15 years ago, when Trevor was just a kid with an algorithm and a dream. Robert had provided the initial funding, the connections, the wisdom. Now Trevor was returning the favor. The file contained everything. 7 sexual harassment complaints from Marcus's company, settled quietly, NDAs signed, women paid off, each one a story of abuse, of power imbalances, of a boss who believed his position gave him ownership. Amanda Pierce was number 8. She never complained. She saw opportunity instead. Financial fraud. Marcus's last 3 ventures succeeded on paper but collapsed in reality. Investors lost fortunes. He walked away richer. Classic pump and dump schemes. Securities fraud. Wire fraud. Enough federal charges to put him away for decades. Tax evasion. Offshore accounts in the Caymans. Shell companies in Delaware. Money laundering through real estate purchases. The IRS would be very interested in this information. And the kicker, Marcus's family wasn't old money. It was new debt. Diane Ashford had been living on credit for 15 years. The society wedding, $200,000 in debt. The penthouse, mortgage to the hilt. The lifestyle, sustained by max credit cards and desperate loans. All smoke, all mirrors, lies. He married Natalie for her money, Robert said. It wasn't a question. He'd suspected. Now he knew. He married her for her name, Trevor corrected. The Thornton name opens doors. His business tripled after the wedding. Investors who wouldn't return his calls suddenly took meetings. Partners who dismissed him as new money suddenly treated him as an equal. Nobody questions a Thornton's husband. That was his strategy. Marry into legitimacy. Use the connection to build credibility. Then cash out. Robert studied the documents. Methodical, thorough. 40 years of business had taught him to verify everything. Trust nothing. The evidence was solid, undeniable, enough to destroy Marcus 10 times over. Why now? Robert asked. You've had this for 2 years. Because now there's video evidence of assault. Now there's public outrage. Now the narrative is written. Marcus is the villain. Natalie is the victim. Anything we add now is confirmation, not accusation. Before, he could have claimed we were targeting him. Now we're just providing additional evidence. Strategic, smart. Trevor hadn't just built a social media empire. He'd built a reputation as someone who understood timing, who knew when to strike, when to wait, when to let the world destroy someone themselves. Natalie read the file in her father's study that afternoon. Each page worse than the last. The harassment complaints detailed incidents that made her sick, made her rage, made her understand that she wasn't special, wasn't chosen, wasn't loved. She was just another target, another woman in a long line of women Marcus had used and discarded. The woman she'd been a week ago, the naive woman who'd believed in soulmates and second chances and the power of love to change people, would have been devastated. The woman she was becoming felt vindicated. Every instinct she'd ignored had been right. Every red flag she'd rationalized had been waving for a reason. Every moment she'd questioned her sanity had been her subconscious screaming the truth. The other women, Natalie said. Her voice was steady, certain. I want to talk to them. That's not, James started, legal liability, potential complications. The safe thing was to let lawyers handle everything. I want to talk to them because this wasn't about legal strategy. It was about understanding, about connection, about knowing she wasn't alone, that it wasn't her fault, that other smart, capable, strong women had fallen for the same lies, that predators are good at predation because they've perfected the art. Violet made the calls, reached out to the women who'd signed NDAs, who'd taken settlements, who'd promised silence in exchange for money. Most declined. Too painful, too public, too risky to break NDAs even though Marcus's legal power was evaporating. But 3 agreed: Sarah Mitchell, Melissa Crawford, Jennifer Hawkins. 3 women who'd been where Natalie was, who'd believed the lies, who'd suffered the consequences, who were ready to speak. Grace found Natalie at 2 a.m. in the kitchen of her childhood home, the house in Connecticut where Natalie had grown up, where she'd felt safe, where Marcus was never welcome because her mother had sensed something wrong from the beginning. Natalie was making cookies, her grandmother's recipe, snickerdoodles. The motions were automatic. Cream butter and sugar until light and fluffy. Add eggs one at a time. Mix dry ingredients in separate bowl. Fold together gently. Roll in cinnamon sugar. She'd made these cookies 1,000 times, at sleepovers in middle school, after breakups in high school, during college finals when stress threatened to overwhelm, after her first job rejection. Her grandmother had taught her, told her that sometimes your hands know what to do when your brain can't cope. Grace didn't say anything, just found a second bowl, started a double batch. They worked in silence, the kitchen warm, the smell of cinnamon filling the air, mother and daughter, creating something sweet in the middle of something bitter. I should have listened to you, Natalie said finally. You told me something was wrong from the beginning. You tried to warn me. You weren't ready to hear it. Grace measured vanilla, precise, practiced. And I couldn't make you ready. You had to see it yourself, had to experience it, had to survive it. That's how abusive relationships work. Nobody can save you. You have to save yourself. But I didn't. Dad saved me. Violet saved me. You saved me. No. Grace looked at her daughter, really looked. We gave you tools. We provided support. We stood ready. But you made the choice. You recorded the conversations. You kept the evidence. You called me that night. You got in the ambulance. You agreed to press charges. That was all you. We just made it easier. The cookies went in the oven. 12 minutes at 350 degrees. They sat at the kitchen table, the same table where Natalie had done homework, where she told her parents she was engaged, where she'd announced the pregnancy. Do you regret marrying him? Grace asked. Natalie thought about it, really thought. I regret the time wasted, the pain, the fear, but I don't regret the lesson. I know what abuse looks like now. I know what manipulation feels like. I know my own strength, and I'm getting a daughter out of it. So no, I don't regret it. I survived it. That's enough. The timer dinged, perfect golden brown. They ate cookies at 2:30 a.m., still warm, sweet, and comforting. A reminder that some things are simple, pure, untainted by the cruelty of the world. While Natalie and Grace baked cookies and found peace, Trevor Cross released his report. Every major media outlet had it by 3 a.m. By sunrise, Marcus Ashford's complete destruction would be public knowledge. The meeting was scheduled for 10 a.m. Conference room 7B at Whitmore and Associates, neutral space, private, secure. Sarah Mitchell arrived first. 29 years old, former marketing director at Marcus's company. She'd left 2 years ago, taken a settlement, signed an NDA, moved to Boston to escape. Melissa Crawford came next. 32, software engineer, brilliant, one of the best in the field. She'd quit after Marcus cornered her in his office, told her she was special, that his wife didn't understand him, that they could have something beautiful if she just gave him a chance. She'd reported him to HR. 2 weeks later, she was fired for performance issues. Jennifer Hawkins was last, 35, former CFO. She'd worked with Marcus for 5 years, watched him operate, seen the pattern. When he'd turned his attention to her, she'd refused. He'd destroyed her career, blacklisted her in the industry, made sure nobody would hire her. 3 women, 3 stories. 7 more had declined. Too raw, too risky, too much. Violet organized this, provided the space, ensured privacy, handled the legal complications. The NDAs were technically still binding, but Marcus's power was gone. His ability to enforce them was evaporating, and sometimes breaking a bad contract is worth the risk. Natalie sat at the head of the conference table, 7 months pregnant now. The bruise on her face had faded to yellow, still visible but healing. She wore a navy dress, simple, professional, her armor. Thank you for coming, she began, her voice steady. I know this isn't easy. I know you have moved on, built new lives. I'm not here to reopen wounds. I'm here because I need to understand. I need to know if what I experienced was... She paused, struggled with the word. If it was real, if I'm not crazy. You're not crazy. Sarah spoke first, firm, certain. He told me I was special, that his wife didn't understand him, that their marriage was over, that he just needed time to end things properly. I believed him. For 6 months I believed him. Then I saw him saying the exact same things to another intern. When he said I was different, Melissa's voice was quieter, Shimon, that he'd never met anyone like me, that I challenged him intellectually, made him think, made him better. Then when I rejected him, he made sure I'd never work in tech again. Jennifer just laughed, bitter, broken. He offered me $100,000 to sleep with him, straight kiss, like I was a prostitute. When I refused, he doctored my reports, made it look like I was embezzling. I had to hire lawyers, clear my name. It took 2 years and all my savings. He destroyed me because I said no. They all had the same story, different details, same manipulation, same tactics, same predator. The meeting lasted 3 hours. They shared experiences, compared notes, found the patterns. Marcus had a type: successful women, independent, intelligent, women who should have known better. That's what made it crueler. He targeted women who were strong and made them weak, who were confident and made them doubt, who were independent and made them dependent. I blamed myself, Natalie said quietly. Thought if I was prettier, smarter, more interesting, more accommodating, more something, he'd love me properly, be faithful, be kind. No. 7 voices, unanimous, absolute. He's a predator, Sarah continued. This is what they do. They find accomplished women and make them small, then act surprised when we try to reclaim ourselves. It's not about us. It's about control, power, the ability to break something beautiful and call it love. The validation was overwhelming. Natalie had spent 3 years questioning herself, wondering what she'd done wrong, how she'd failed, why she wasn't enough. Now, surrounded by other women who'd asked themselves the same questions, she understood. She hadn't failed. She'd been targeted, systematically, methodically, by someone who'd made manipulation his art form. By the end of the meeting, they had more than shared experiences. They had 7 sworn statements, detailed, corroborated, time-stamped with emails, texts, calendar entries, documentation of a pattern spanning 7 years. Evidence that this wasn't isolated incidents. This was systematic abuse. Marcus Ashford wasn't just a bad husband. He was a serial predator. The statements were filed with the district attorney's office at 2 p.m. By 3 p.m., a criminal investigation was opened. By 4 p.m., Marcus was arrested at his lawyer's office. The charges: 7 counts of sexual harassment, 3 counts of securities fraud, 2 counts of wire fraud, 4 counts of tax evasion, 1 count of assault, 1 count of domestic violence, 1 count of embezzlement. Bail was set at $5 million. Marcus couldn't make it. His accounts were frozen, his assets seized, his mother's credit cards maxed out. Nobody would loan him money, not after the evidence, not after public opinion turned completely. He was remanded to Rikers Island. Not the luxury holding cell reserved for wealthy defendants. Regular population, because judges don't like men who hit pregnant women. Because even criminals have standards. Natalie watched the perp walk on television. Marcus in handcuffs, flanked by police, cameras flashing, reporters shouting questions. He looked small, diminished, the swagger completely gone. Just a man facing consequences for the first time in his life. She felt nothing. Not triumph, not satisfaction, not even relief. Just a vast emptiness where love used to be, or what she'd convinced herself was love. Violet sat beside her, wine for herself, sparkling water for Natalie. They watched the news coverage, every channel leading with the story, the video of the slap still playing on loop, now followed by the mugshot, the charges, the evidence. How do you feel? Violet asked. Tired, Natalie admitted. So tired, like I've been running for 3 years and I finally stopped. You did stop, and you turned around and fought. Is that what this is? Fighting? It feels more like watching a building collapse, inevitable, destructive, necessary. The news switched to an interview. Amanda Pierce. She'd agreed to talk to Diane Sawyer. Exclusive interview. Prime time. Tomorrow night. She's going to claim she didn't know, Violet predicted. Didn't know he was abusive. Didn't know about the money. Didn't know he'd never leave his wife. Classic other woman defense. But Natalie thought differently. She'd seen Amanda's face at the gala, the smirk that said, I won. Then the fear when Robert made his calls. Then the calculation when she realized she'd backed the wrong horse. Amanda Pierce was smart, ambitious, ruthless. She hadn't been a victim. She'd been a co-conspirator. But she was also young, 26, employable, valuable as a witness. She'd cooperate. Turn on Marcus, save herself. The phone rang. Unknown number. Natalie almost didn't answer. Too many reporters. Too many strangers. Too much attention. But something made her press accept. Natalie Thornton? A woman's voice. Young, familiar. This is Amanda Pierce. Don't hang up. Please, I need to talk to you. Every instinct said hang up. Block the number. Refuse engagement. But curiosity won. I'm listening. Can we meet? In person, somewhere public? Amanda's voice broke. I need to tell you something, the truth, all of it. They met in Riverside Park. 2 days later, early morning, joggers and dog walkers and people living normal lives. Amanda arrived wearing jeans and a sweatshirt. No makeup, no designer clothes. Just a 26-year-old woman who looked 10 years older. Natalie brought Violet, safety, witness, support. They sat on a bench overlooking the Hudson, cold November air, gray water, the city waking up around them. Amanda brought coffee, 2 cups, both decaf. The gesture so small and so significant. She'd remembered. Natalie was pregnant, couldn't have caffeine. Thank you for meeting me, Amanda began. Her hands shook. I know you have no reason to trust me, no reason to listen, but I need you to understand something. I'm not here to apologize. I can't undo what I did, but I can tell you the truth. Then tell it. I knew he was married. Obviously, I knew you were pregnant. I knew everything. But he told me, she paused, breathed, started again. He told me you were cold, that the marriage was dead, that you trapped him with pregnancy, that he was staying out of obligation, that he loved me, that once the baby was born, he'd leave, we'd be together, he'd marry me. And you believed him. I wanted to believe him. There's a difference. I'm 26. He's rich, connected, powerful. I'm from Queens, single mother family, worked 3 jobs to get through college. When Marcus Ashford noticed me, it felt like winning the lottery, like everything I'd worked for finally paying off. Natalie understood, hated that she understood, but she did. Marcus was good at making women feel chosen, special, different from everyone else. What changed? Violet asked. The video, seeing you fall, seeing his hand raised, seeing the violence. I'd told myself he was just trapped, unhappy, stressed. But violence isn't stress, it's choice, and I've been making excuses for someone who chose to hurt people. You're still making excuses. Maybe, probably, but I'm also making a choice. I can go down with him, face charges as an accomplice, go to prison, or I can tell the truth, cooperate, testify, face probation and community service, and a future. I'm choosing the future. Amanda handed over her phone. Unlocked. Everything's on there. Text messages going back 18 months. Conversations about hiding money, setting up shell companies, transferring funds. I did what he asked. I was stupid and greedy and desperate to prove I was valuable. Now I'm trying to be smart. Violet took the phone, scrolled, whistled low. This is comprehensive. This is everything we need. There's more. Amanda's voice dropped. He was planning to divorce you. Take custody, claim you were unfit. His lawyer had it all mapped out. They were going to use your history of depression against you, the medication you took in college, the therapy after your grandfather died. They were going to paint you as unstable, dangerous. How long? Natalie's voice was steady, but inside she was screaming. How long was he planning this? Since before the wedding. It was always about money, access, control. You were never a person to him. You were an asset, something to acquire, use, discard when you saw it being profitable. The truth hung between them, heavy, final, undeniable. What did he promise you? Natalie asked. After the divorce, after he took my money, what was your cut? 10%, 5 million, enough to disappear, start over, never have to work again. Amanda looked at the river. I told myself it wasn't wrong. You had money. You'd be fine. The baby would be fine. It was just redistribution, but it was theft. I know that now. They sat in silence, 2 women who'd loved the same terrible man, who'd believed different versions of the same lies, who'd survived different versions of the same cruelty. I can't forgive you, Natalie said finally. I don't even like you, but I understand you, and I think that's worse, because it means he's good at this, practiced, and we're just the 2 who got caught in the crossfire of his ego. I know, Amanda stood. My lawyer is coordinating with the DA. I'm testifying, full cooperation, everything I know. It won't make up for what I did, but it's all I can offer. She walked away, left the coffee cups. Natalie picked one up, took a sip, still warm, still comforting. The simple pleasure of caffeine-free coffee on a cold morning. She'd learned to appreciate small things, simple joys, moments without fear. That was unexpected, Violet said. She's smart. She chose survival over loyalty. Can't fault her for that. I did the same thing. They watched the river, boats moving, life continuing, the world indifferent to personal tragedy, to small betrayals and large devastations, to women reclaiming themselves from men who tried to erase them. Natalie's phone buzzed, text from her mother, family dinner tonight, her parents' house, safe space, home. Ready to go? Violet asked. Not yet, 5 more minutes. 5 minutes of sitting, breathing, existing without fear, without calculation, without wondering if she was safe. 5 minutes of freedom. That's what victory looked like. Not revenge, not destruction, just 5 minutes of peace. While Natalie sat by the river finding peace, the DA's office was preparing their case. With Amanda's cooperation, they had everything they needed. Marcus Ashford would face justice. But Natalie was about to face something harder. Forgiveness, not of him. Of herself. The courthouse steps were cold. November in New York meant gray skies and bitter wind. Media everywhere, cameras, microphones. Reporters shouting questions that blurred together into incomprehensible noise. Natalie wore navy. Ralph Lauren. Sophisticated, strong, professional. Her belly was obvious now. 8 months pregnant. Any day. The baby could come any day. Her doctor had warned against stress, against public appearances, against anything that might trigger early labor. But Natalie needed to be here, needed to watch, needed to see Marcus face consequences. He arrived in handcuffs, orange jumpsuit, shackled, flanked by corrections officers. Rikers had not been kind. 3 weeks had aged him years, hollow cheeks, dark circles, stubble becoming a beard, the glossy veneer of wealth completely stripped away. This was Marcus without money, without power, without the ability to charm or threaten or buy his way out. Just a man, small and petty and cruel. Their eyes met across the courthouse steps. For a moment, just a moment, Natalie saw the man she'd married, or thought she'd married. The illusion had been so perfect, so complete. She'd believed in it utterly, believed in him, believed in their future, their love, their happily ever after. All lies, all manipulation, all calculated deception. Inside, the courtroom smelled like wood polish and old paper. The judge, Emily Morrison, 60 years old, federal appointee, no-nonsense reputation, presided from the bench. She'd reviewed the evidence, all of it, 23 hours of testimony, 4,000 pages of documents, 600 exhibits. Marcus's lawyer stood, public defender, overworked, underpaid, representing a client who couldn't afford private counsel anymore. Your Honor, my client wishes to enter a plea. Mr. Ashford, you've been charged with 15 counts across multiple jurisdictions. How do you plead? Marcus stood, shackled, diminished. Guilty, Your Honor. To all counts. The courtroom erupted. Whispers, gasps, reporters typing furiously. This wasn't expected. Criminal trials could take years. Appeals, motions, delays. A guilty plea meant accepting responsibility, accepting punishment, accepting defeat. Order at Judge Morrison's gavel cracked like thunder. Mr. Ashford, you understand that by pleading guilty, you waive your right to trial, you waive your right to appeal, you accept the sentence recommended by the prosecution? Yes, Your Honor. And your lawyer has explained the consequences, the sentencing guidelines? Yes, Your Honor. The judge studied him. 30 seconds of silence. Heavy, oppressive. Why the guilty plea, Mr. Ashford? Marcus looked at Natalie, actually looked. Because I'm guilty of everything. The abuse, the fraud, the theft, the affairs, all of it. I'm guilty, and I'm tired of pretending I'm not. Was it real, or was this another manipulation, another performance? Natalie couldn't tell, didn't care. Real or fake, the result was the same. Consequences. Finally. Very well. Judge Morrison opened the sentencing recommendation. Read it. Her expression never changed. Marcus Ashford, you are hereby sentenced to 8 years in federal prison. No possibility of parole for the first 4 years. You will pay full restitution of $8.3 million to Natalie Thornton. You will pay an additional $2 million in fines. You will forfeit all assets. You are barred from serving as officer or director of any public company. You will have supervised visitation with your child, pending psychological evaluation and approval from family court. Do you have anything to say? Marcus was silent, then quietly, I'm sorry for whatever that's worth. I'm sorry. Judge Morrison's expression hardened. Mr. Ashford, I've been on this bench for 20 years. I've heard a lot of apologies. Most of them are meaningless. Words said because they're expected, not because they're felt. Your apology falls into that category. You hit your pregnant wife at a charity gala in front of 500 witnesses. You stole millions from joint accounts. You threatened her, manipulated her, gaslit her for 3 years. You harassed multiple women, committed securities fraud, tax evasion. You're not sorry you did it. You're sorry you got caught. There's a difference, as she banged the gavel. 8 years, federal corrections facility, minimum security, but still prison. Because even wealthy white men face consequences when the evidence is overwhelming and the public is watching. Take him away. The bailiffs moved forward. Marcus looked back once, met Natalie's eyes. She saw nothing there. No remorse, no understanding. Just resentment, anger at being caught, at losing, at failing. Outside, reporters swarmed. Natalie had prepared a statement. Grace wrote it. Violet edited it. James approved it. But standing there, 8 months pregnant, exhausted, overwhelmed, Natalie crumpled the paper. I'm not going to pretend this is a victory, she told them. The microphones captured every word. My daughter will grow up without a father. That's not something to celebrate. That's a tragedy. But she'll also grow up knowing that her mother was strong enough to protect her. That when someone hit me, I didn't make excuses. I pressed charges, I fought back, and I won. Not because I'm special, but because I finally believed I deserved better. The hardest part is admitting I knew all along. I saw the signs. I ignored them because leaving felt impossible. But impossible is just a word men use to keep women small. Do you have a message for other women in abusive relationships? A reporter shouted. Natalie paused, thought. Document everything. Trust your instincts. Reach out for help. And know that leaving is hard. Staying is harder. You deserve safety. You deserve peace. You deserve a life without fear. And it's never too late to choose yourself. The press conference lasted 20 minutes. Then Robert drove her away. Secret route, back entrance. Away from cameras and questions and the public consumption of private pain. They went to the beach house, the Thornton family home in the Hamptons, empty in November, off-season, quiet, safe. Father and daughter sat on the porch, wrapped in blankets, watching waves, gray water, gray sky, gray world, the color of exhaustion, of relief, of endings that feel like neither victory nor defeat. Robert held her hand, didn't speak, didn't need to, just sat, present, solid, real. Thank you, Natalie said finally, for everything, for destroying him, for protecting me, for being what a father should be. You protected yourself, Robert corrected. I just provided resources. You made the choice, you gathered the evidence, you pressed charges, you stood up. That was all you. It doesn't feel like victory, because it's not. Victory would be if this never happened. What we have is survival, justice maybe, but not victory. The best we can do is make sure he never hurts anyone again, and build something better from the rubble. They sat until sunset, the sky turning pink and orange, beautiful despite everything. The world indifferent to human suffering, to broken marriages and shattered dreams, to women rebuilding themselves from pieces men tried to destroy. That night, Natalie drove home alone. Her parents offered to come. Violet insisted, but Natalie needed solitude, needed to be alone with her thoughts, her feelings, her future. She pulled into a rest stop halfway home, got out, walked to the railing overlooking the highway. Cars rushed past, everyone going somewhere, everyone certain of their direction. She was 8 months pregnant, alone, soon to be divorced. Her face had been international news. Her husband, ex-husband, was in prison. Her baby would grow up with this story following her, the daughter of the woman who got hit at a gala, the daughter of the man who went to prison for abuse. The breakdown came hard, unexpected, overwhelming, the kind where you can't breathe, can't think, can't imagine the next minute, let alone the next year. I don't know how to do this. She said it out loud, to nobody, to the highway, to Bon or the universe or whatever might be listening. I don't know how to be a single mother, how to explain this, how to protect her from the truth, how to live with what happened, how to be okay. Her phone buzzed. Text from Grace. Simple. Perfect. You're stronger than you know. Come home. But which home? The penthouse was crime scene in evidence. Marcus's space. Tainted. The Connecticut house was childhood. Regression. Everything felt temporary. Uncertain. Nothing felt safe. She sat in her car for 40 minutes. Engine off. Heat off. Just existing. Cold. Numb. Lost. Sometimes surviving looks like sitting in a parking lot until you can drive again. Sometimes it looks like crying until there's nothing left. Sometimes it looks like calling your mother and saying, I need help, and meaning it. Grace arrived 30 minutes later, brought coffee, a blanket, quiet presence. They sat together, mother and daughter, in a rest stop off I-95, surrounded by strangers in traffic, finding comfort in simple proximity. I'm scared, Natalie admitted, of doing this alone, of failing her, of not being enough. You're not alone. You have me, your father, Violet, an entire support system, and you're already enough. You chose her over him. You chose safety over comfort. You chose truth over lies. You're exactly what she needs. They drove home together. Grace drove, Natalie in the passenger seat, hand on her belly, feeling her daughter move. Strong, insistent, alive. Life continued. The world spun. Everything moved forward. 3 weeks after sentencing, Natalie went into labor. It started at 2 a.m. Contractions, sharp, regular, 8 minutes apart. She called Grace first, then Violet, then her doctor. The calm efficiency of emergency, the practiced routine of crisis. Grace arrived within 20 minutes. Pajamas under a fur coat, no makeup, hair in rollers. Beautiful anyway, because mothers are always beautiful when they come to save you. Violet was already there. She'd been staying in the guest room, just in case, just to be close, just because that's what best friends do. Robert drove like every cab in New York learned from him. Fast, precise, completely illegal. Running red lights, weaving through traffic. The city at 3 a.m. was empty enough to make it work. She's coming early, DeReeves checked monitors. 37 weeks, full term, but early. Your daughter couldn't wait to meet you. The labor was long, 18 hours. Natalie thought about pain. How she'd been living with it so long, she forgot it wasn't normal. How physical pain felt different. Cleaner, honest, pain with purpose. Pain that ended in something beautiful instead of something broken. Grace held one hand. Violet held the other. Robert paced, useless and essential, helpless and necessary. I can't do this, Natalie gasped. Hour 14, exhausted, overwhelmed. I can't. It's too much. You can, Grace said firmly. You've already done harder. You survived Marcus. You survived the trial. You survived everything. Labor is temporary. Pain is temporary. You can do temporary. But what comes after? How do I raise her alone? You're not alone. You have us. And you're stronger than you think. You always have been. You just needed to remember. At 4:17 p.m., her daughter entered the world. 6 pounds, 3 ounces, perfect, absolutely perfect. Tiny fingers, tiny toes, a face that looked like Natalie's baby pictures. Dark hair, eyes that would probably change color. Lungs that worked perfectly based on her immediate, furious screaming. "What's her name?" the nurse asked. Natalie looked at her mother, her father, Violet, the people who'd saved her, who'd stood by her, who'd loved her even when she couldn't love herself. Grace, she touched her daughter's face. Soft, real, hers. Grace Hope Thornton. No Ashford. That was intentional, deliberate. This child belonged to love, not damage. To hope, not pain. To a future she'd build instead of a past she'd survived. "She's perfect," Robert whispered, his voice breaking. "Just perfect." The first night home was terrifying. The apartment, new apartment, fresh start, no memories of Marcus, was quiet. Too quiet. Every sound made Natalie jump. Every silence felt heavy. She sat in the nursery at 3 a.m., baby Grace asleep in her arms. The house dark except for a nightlight, shaped like a moon, casting soft silver light. For the first time in years, the silence wasn't heavy. It was peaceful. She didn't check her phone compulsively, didn't worry about waking someone, didn't calculate whether she was safe. She just existed with her daughter. Two people. New beginning, different story. Grace stirred, made soft baby noises, settled back into sleep. The trust was absolute, complete. This tiny person trusted Natalie entirely, believed she would provide food, warmth, safety, love, all of it. The responsibility was crushing and beautiful. "I promise," Natalie whispered. Same promise she'd made before, but different now, real now. "I'll protect you, I'll love you, I'll show you what healthy looks like. You'll never wonder if you're safe. You'll never question if you're loved. You'll never settle for cruelty disguised as care." The baby's hand wrapped around Natalie's finger. Tiny, strong, perfect. This was victory. Not the courtroom, not the sentence, not the justice. This moment, this peace, this tiny hand holding hers. This absolute certainty that she'd done the right thing. The hard thing. The thing that saved them both. 6 months after the divorce was final, after Grace had stopped screaming quite so much, after Natalie had found a rhythm that felt sustainable if not easy, she attended a conference. Women in Business. Networking event. Panel discussion on entrepreneurship. She almost didn't go. Too public. Too exposed. Too risky. But Grace had been right. She couldn't hide forever. Couldn't let Marcus's actions define her existence. Couldn't let fear win. The conference was at the Javits Center. Huge. Overwhelming. Thousands of women. Natalie wore black, simple, professional. Grace stayed with her grandmother. First time Natalie had been away from her daughter for more than 2 hours. The separation anxiety was mutual. The keynote was inspiring. A CEO who'd built a billion-dollar company from nothing, who'd faced bankruptcy and sexism and doubt, who'd succeeded anyway. The message was clear. Women are capable of anything. We just need opportunity and support and refusal to accept no. At the reception afterward, a man approached. 42, tweed jacket, professor vibes, kind eyes, gentle smile. "Natalie Thornton?" He extended his hand. "Ben Winters. I teach family law at Columbia. I've been following your case. I hope that's not creepy." "It's not creepy, right? That sounded creepy." Natalie laughed, actually laughed. The first real laugh in months. "It's not creepy, it's flattering, I think. I wanted to tell you that what you did, pressing charges, testifying, following through, it matters. I use your case in my class to show what accountability looks like, what justice looks like when victims have resources and support. I had advantages most women don't, which is exactly the problem. Justice shouldn't require wealth and connections. It should be standard. But until we fix the system, your case provides a roadmap. Proof that holding abusers accountable is possible." They talked for 20 minutes, then an hour, then exchanged numbers. Professional networking, academic interest, nothing more. But something shifted, a possibility, a reminder that not all men were Marcus, that healthy existed, that trust could be rebuilt, that eventually, maybe, potentially, someday, love might be possible again. Not today, not tomorrow, not soon, but someday. The first date happened 3 weeks later. Coffee, midday, public place, low stakes. Violet ran a background check first. Robert had him investigated. Grace interrogated his intentions. Ben passed all tests with humor and patience. He was divorced. 2 years. Amicable split. No kids. Professor of law. Specialized in family court reform. Advocate for domestic violence victims. Wrote articles. Gave testimony. Actually cared. The second date was dinner. Italian restaurant. Small. Quiet. He asked about Grace. Showed genuine interest. Didn't make it weird. Didn't pretend babies weren't all-consuming. Just asked questions and listened to answers. The third date was a walk in Central Park. Grace in her stroller, 6 months old, chubby and happy and completely charmed by Ben's funny faces. "I need to be honest," Natalie said. They sat on a bench, watching dogs play. Normal Sunday afternoon. "I'm not ready for anything serious. I'm still processing, still healing, still learning how to trust my own judgment again." "I know." Ben's smile was gentle, understanding, real. "I'm not asking for serious. I'm asking for possible, for maybe, for let's see where this goes without pressure or expectations or deadlines. Possible I can do. Then that's enough." They sat in comfortable silence. Two people, one possibility, no pressure, no promises, just presence. That was the difference between Ben and Marcus. Marcus demanded, pushed, pressured, made every interaction a test she could fail. Ben offered, suggested, waited, made every interaction safe. The trauma therapist Natalie had been seeing twice a week said this was good, healthy, proof that her ability to trust wasn't permanently broken, just bruised, healing, slowly rebuilding. "What happens if we don't work out?" Natalie asked, the fear she couldn't quite silence. "If I realize I'm not ready, if it's too soon, if I can't, then we don't work out," Ben interrupted gently. "And that's okay. You don't owe me a relationship. You don't owe me anything. We're two adults choosing to spend time together. If that stops working for either of us, we stop. No drama, no punishment, no vindictiveness, just adults being honest." The concept was revolutionary. Relationship as choice instead of trap. Connection as gift instead of obligation. Love as addition instead of subtraction. Natalie thought her story was over. The bad guy punished. The baby safe. New chapter begun. She didn't know that this was just the beginning. That healing takes time. That rebuilding takes longer. That becoming whole again is a process, not an event. But she was learning, growing, changing, becoming someone new, someone stronger, someone who knew her worth, someone who wouldn't accept less than she deserved ever again. 1 year after the gala, 365 days, 52 weeks, 12 months. However you measured it, a complete revolution around the sun. Natalie stood in her new office, Thornton Ventures, 42nd floor, corner office, windows overlooking Manhattan. The view was different from here. Higher, clearer, full of possibility, her company, her vision. Venture capital firm focused exclusively on women-owned businesses, investing in entrepreneurs who faced bias, who couldn't get traditional funding, who had brilliant ideas but lacked connections. She provided both. The first investment was about to close. Tech startup, two founders, Sarah Mitchell and Melissa Crawford, two of Marcus's victims, now CEOs, now building something remarkable. The company created software that identified abusive patterns in text messages, helped victims document abuse, provided evidence for court cases, potentially saved lives, currently valued at $50 million. Natalie had invested $2 million, her money, her choice, her way of turning pain into purpose. "We closed today," Sarah said. She sat across from Natalie, confident, strong, completely different from the broken woman who testified a year ago. "The paperwork is ready. The investors are committed. We launch in 6 months." "I'm proud of you," Natalie said. "Both of you, taking your trauma and building something that helps other women. That's remarkable. We learned from you. You showed us that survival isn't enough. We can thrive. We can build. We can win." After Sarah left, Natalie sat alone. Her office was minimalist, modern, clean lines, no clutter, no memories, just space to build a future. Her phone buzzed. Text from Ben. Dinner tonight? I'm cooking. They'd been dating for 9 months, slowly, carefully, respecting boundaries, building trust. He'd met Grace a dozen times, was patient with her fears, understood her hesitation, never pushed, never demanded, just offered and waited and accepted whatever she could give. Last week, he told her he loved her, simple, casual, while they were grocery shopping. I love you, no pressure, just wanted you to know. She hadn't said it back, not yet. The words caught in her throat, tangled with memories of the last time she'd said them to Marcus, before everything, but she was getting there, close, almost ready. Her father visited at lunch. They ate Chinese takeout in her corner office. Dumplings and lo mein, simple, perfect. You built this, Robert said. Pride evident, absolute. I gave you capital. You created the empire. I learned from the best. Your mother or me? Both. The truth was she'd learned from everyone. From Grace's quiet strength, from Violet's fierce loyalty, from Amanda's cautionary tale of choosing wrong, from Marcus's demonstration of what not to be, from Sarah and Melissa's resilience, from Ben's gentle patience. She'd learned that trauma doesn't define you. Actions do, choices do, what you build after the breaking. Have you heard anything? Natalie asked. The question she tried not to ask but couldn't help. About him? Marcus is adjusting poorly to incarceration. Apparently, inmates don't like men who hit pregnant women. He's in protective custody, alone, miserable, exactly where he belongs. Natalie felt nothing. No satisfaction, no vindication, just indifference. Marcus had become irrelevant, a footnote, a cautionary tale, no longer the center of her story. That evening, Natalie and Ben cooked together. His apartment, small but cozy, full of books, plants, evidence of a life built slowly and with intention. Grace was with her grandparents, overnight, first time. Natalie had checked her phone 16 times. Grace was fine, thriving, loved, safe. You okay? Ben asked. He was chopping vegetables, competent, comfortable, at ease in his own space. I'm learning to be okay with okay. Does that make sense? Perfect sense. They cooked, ate, talked about nothing important, everything important. The comfortable conversation of people who genuinely like each other, who choose each other, who aren't together because they're afraid to be alone, but because together is better. After dinner, they sat on his couch, close but not touching, respecting boundaries she'd set, waiting for her to decide when and how and if. I'm scared, Natalie admitted, of trusting, of being wrong, of choosing badly, of bringing someone into Grace's life who might hurt her. Those are valid fears. But there's no but. They're valid. You have every reason to be careful, every reason to protect yourself and your daughter, every reason to move slowly. I'm not here to rush you. I'm here to show you that safe exists, that healthy is possible, that not everyone will hurt you. She looked at him, really looked. Ben Winters was nothing like Marcus, different in every way that mattered. Kind where Marcus was cruel, patient where Marcus was demanding, secure where Marcus was controlling, real where Marcus was performance. I think I'm falling in love with you, she whispered, and it terrifies me. I know, it's terrifying. Vulnerability always is, especially after someone weaponized it. What if I'm wrong? What if I can't trust my judgment? What if you're right? Ben interrupted gently. What if your judgment is fine? What if the problem wasn't you, it was him? What if you're fully capable of choosing well and you chose badly once, and that doesn't mean you'll choose badly forever? The possibility hung between them. Revolutionary, radical. The idea that she wasn't broken, just hurt. That her judgment wasn't faulty, just inexperienced with predators who'd perfected their craft. I'm not ready, she said finally, for this conversation, this level, this vulnerability, but I'm getting there, close, almost. Then that's enough. They sat together, comfortable silence, Two people choosing each other slowly, carefully, with intention and respect and patience. This was what healthy looked like. Not pressure, not ultimatums, not demands, just presence, support, willingness to wait until both people were ready. Natalie went home at 10 p.m., kissed Ben goodbye, gentle, sweet, full of promise, drove to her parents' house, collected Grace, brought her home. Mother and daughter, safe space, new life, different story. That night, tucking Grace into bed, she was walking now, talking in fragments, a whole person emerging. Grace asked the question Natalie had been dreading. "Mama, why don't I have a daddy?" Natalie breathed. They'd practiced this. The therapist helped. Violet provided legal language. Grace Sr. suggested honesty appropriate for age. "You have so many people who love you. Grandma Grace, Grandpa Robert, Aunt Violet, Uncle Ben, and me. That's more than enough. Some families have a mommy and a daddy. Some have two mommies. Some have two daddies. Some have grandparents. Some have one parent. All that matters is love. You have so much love." "But where's my daddy?" "Your father made bad choices. He hurt people. Sometimes grown-ups do that. And when they do, there are consequences. Your father is facing those consequences. But you're safe, you're loved, and you never have to worry about someone who chose not to be here." Grace considered this, 15 months old, too young to fully understand but old enough to sense truth. Okay, that easy. Children adapt when given truth and security. Natalie kissed her forehead, read her favorite story, watched her fall asleep, stayed longer than necessary, just watching. This perfect person, this innocent life. This daughter who would grow up knowing her worth, who would never question if she deserved safety, who would never accept cruelty disguised as love. Natalie had broken the cycle. That was the real victory. Not the trial, not the sentence, not the justice. The victory was in Grace's certainty, her security, her absolute trust that she was loved and safe and worthy. That was everything. 5 years later, Grace was 7 now, first grade, bright, funny, confident, everything Natalie hoped she'd be. She played soccer, loved art class, had 3 best friends, lived a normal, happy, stable childhood. They told her the truth gradually, age-appropriate honesty. "Yes, your father made mistakes. No, you can't see him. Yes, that's sad. No, it's not your fault. Yes, you were loved. Absolutely, you are safe." Grace accepted it, processed it with the resilience of children, moved on, thrived. Natalie and Ben had been married for 3 years. Small wedding, immediate family, beach ceremony. Violet officiated. Grace was flower girl. It was perfect. The proposal had come 2 years after they started dating, not with a ring, with a question. "Will you consider building something with me?" No pressure, no timeline, no expectations, just possible. She'd said yes, to possible, to hope, to trying again with someone who'd earned trust slowly, who'd proven himself daily, who'd loved Grace like his own, who'd shown Natalie what healthy partnership actually looked like. They were expecting baby number 2, due in 3 months. A boy this time. They were naming him after Robert. Grace was excited about being a big sister. This pregnancy was different, entirely different. Ben attended every appointment, held her hand, told her she was beautiful even with swollen ankles and constant exhaustion, made her laugh, made her feel safe, made her remember what love actually felt like when it wasn't weaponized. Thornton Ventures had grown exponentially. Portfolio of 43 companies, combined valuation over $200 million. Natalie had become a name in venture capital, a force, someone who identified talent, provided capital, built success. The Safe Harbor Foundation, separate from Thornton Ventures, had helped 3,000 women leave dangerous situations, provided legal support, housing, financial resources, everything Natalie wished she'd had, everything women deserved. She gave talks now, universities, conferences, corporate events, sharing her story, not for sympathy, for solidarity, for proof that survival is possible, that thriving comes after, that trauma doesn't have to be permanent. Marcus had been released 6 months ago. Good behavior, psychological evaluation, parole board approval. He served 4 years of an 8-year sentence. The system rarely makes anyone serve full time. He'd written letters, wanted to meet Grace, claimed he'd changed, claimed prison taught him, claimed he understood now. Classic abuser language. Same patterns. Same manipulation, just wrapped in therapy speak. Natalie declined. Grace didn't need that confusion, that complexity, that potential danger. Maybe when she was older. Maybe when she could decide for herself. Maybe never. The parole board had approved supervised visits. Marcus had court-ordered rights, but Grace had choices. And she chose no. Her therapist supported it. The court respected it. 7-year-olds get a voice. Marcus had tried to rebuild. New business, new life, new girlfriend. But the internet doesn't forget. A quick Google search revealed everything. Employment prospects vanished. Investments declined. Partners reconsidered. The scarlet letter of the digital age was permanent. He'd sent one final letter. Natalie read it once, filed it away. Maybe Grace would want it someday. Maybe not. That was her choice. The letter said, "I'm sorry. I know that means nothing. I know I destroyed everything. I know I hurt you. I know I don't deserve forgiveness. I'm not asking for it. I just want you to know that prison changed me. Therapy changed me. Losing everything changed me. I understand what I did now. I understand that I'm the villain in your story, in everyone's story, and I've accepted to that. I hope you're happy. I hope Grace is healthy. I hope you found what you deserved. I hope destroying me was worth it. Not because I'm bitter, because I genuinely hope your life improved after I left it. That's what should happen when you remove a tumor. The body heals. I was the tumor. You cut me out. I hope you healed." The letter was simultaneously self-aware and manipulative, apologetic and accusatory, changed and unchanged. Natalie felt nothing. Indifference had replaced rage. Apathy had replaced pain. He'd become a story she told, an example she used, a cautionary tale, no longer the center of her universe. That was freedom. The final scene took place on a Tuesday afternoon. Ordinary, unremarkable. The kind of day that matters because it's normal. Natalie was at Grace's school play. First grade production. A musical about friendship. Grace played a queen. She had 7 lines. A small solo. She was magnificent. Ben sat beside Natalie, hand in hers. 3 months pregnant, but not showing much yet. Robert and Grace Sr. on the other side. Violet and her new girlfriend behind them. Sarah and Melissa in attendance because they'd become friends. Family, support system. The play was charming, simple, filled with missed cues and forgotten lines and off-key singing. Perfect because children are perfect in their imperfection. Grace's solo arrived. She stepped forward, confident, strong, sang about being brave, about standing up, about knowing your worth. The metaphor wasn't subtle, it didn't need to be. After the performance, they went for ice cream. The whole crew, loud, chaotic, full of love. Grace told everyone about her performance. Described it in detail despite them all having been there. Children's enthusiasm is infectious. "Mama," Grace asked, chocolate ice cream on her face, "did I do good?" "You were perfect, absolutely perfect." "Did you cry?" "Maybe a little." "Happy tears?" "The happiest." Ben leaned over, whispered in Natalie's ear, "You did this. You built this. This happy, confident, secure child. You did that. We did that. You started it. I just helped maintain." The day ended with bath time and bedtime routine. Grace's room was exactly what a 7-year-old's room should be. Messy, colorful, full of art projects and stuffed animals and books. Evidence of a childhood being lived fully, safely, joyfully. "I love you, Mama," Grace said. Sleepy, content. "I love you too, baby girl. More than anything. Even more than Uncle Ben. Different than Uncle Ben, I have enough love for all my favorite people. Love doesn't run out, it multiplies." That's good because I love a lot of people. That means you have a big heart. Like you. Grace fell asleep mid-sentence, the instant sleep of secure children. Natalie sat for a moment longer, just watching. This person she'd created, protected, guided. This proof that trauma doesn't have to transfer, that cycles can break, that different is possible. She walked downstairs. Ben was in the kitchen, making tea. 2 cups, decaf for her, regular for him, the small gestures of partnership, of knowing someone, of choosing them daily. They sat on the couch, close, comfortable, easy. "I've been thinking," Natalie said. "Dangerous," she smiled. "About that day, the gala, 5 years ago, how different everything was, how impossible happiness seemed, how certain I was that I'd never trust again, never love again, never be okay again. And, and I was wrong, I did trust. I did love. I am okay, better than okay. I'm happy, actually genuinely happy. The kind that isn't performed or pretended. The kind that exists even when nobody's watching. That's good. That's really good. People asked me when I knew I'd be okay. It wasn't the divorce, not the sentencing, not even the day Grace was born. It was a random Tuesday afternoon about 2 years ago. I realized I'd gone 3 whole hours without checking my phone, without calculating my safety, without wondering if I was enough. I was just living, present, in harm, unafraid. That's when I knew I'd won. You did win. We won because healing isn't solitary. It's communal. I had help, support, resources. Not everyone does. That's why Safe Harbor matters. That's why I tell my story. So other women know it's possible, know they're not alone, know that impossible is just a word. They sat in comfortable silence, the kind that happens between people who built something real, something lasting, something chosen daily instead of accepted by default. Outside, the city continued. Millions of people, millions of stories, some ending, some beginning, some stuck in the middle trying to decide which direction to go. Natalie's story had been ending, dying, trapped in a cycle that would have eventually killed her, literally or figuratively. Marcus would have escalated. Violence always escalates. She would have stayed because leaving seemed impossible, because the baby needed a father, because she'd invested too much, because hope is a prison when attached to the wrong person. But she'd left, survived, rebuilt, transformed. The woman who stood in that ballroom 5 years ago, broken, humiliated, terrified, wouldn't recognize this life, this peace, this woe, this absolute certainty that she deserved better and had found it. That woman had needed to die so this woman could live. This wasn't a revenge story. Revenge would have been obsessing over Marcus's suffering, monitoring his life, ensuring his continued misery. This was a resurrection story. She died, been reborn, built a completely new existence from the rubble of the old one. Marcus was irrelevant, a footnote, an example, a cautionary tale she shared to help others, but not the center, not anymore, not ever again. The center was Grace, was Ben, was family, was building, was healing, was helping, was living. That was victory. I finally understood that the prison door had been unlocked all along. I'd been my own warden, but I'm also my own key. And I walked out. 5 years ago, at a gala in Manhattan, a woman was hit. The video went viral. The world watched. The hashtag trended. Justice was served. But that's not the real story. The real story is what happened after. How she survived. How she rebuilt. How she transformed pain into purpose. How she broke cycles. How she loved again. How she lived. That's the story that matters. That's the story worth telling. That's the resurrection. Natalie's story didn't end with Marcus going to prison. It ended with her building an empire, raising a daughter who knows her worth, finding love that doesn't hurt, creating a foundation that's helped 3,000 women escape situations just like hers. Her story ended with resurrection. But here's the truth. Natalie's story isn't unique. It's universal. Right now, someone you know is living a version of this nightmare, making excuses, rationalizing cruelty, believing impossible means forever. If this story resonated with you, if it made you think, if it reminded you that survival is possible and thriving comes after, I need you to do something. Hit that like button. Not for me, for every woman who needs to hear this story, because the algorithm shows these stories to people who need them most. Your like might save someone's life. Drop a comment, share your thoughts, your experiences, your hope. This community exists because we support each other, because we validate each other's pain, because we celebrate each other's victories. Share this video. Send it to someone who needs to hear it. Post it on your timeline. Text it to a friend who's been making excuses for someone's cruelty. Sometimes people need to hear someone else's story before they can face their own. And subscribe to this channel. Hit that notification bell, because every week we share stories like this. Stories about survival, about strength, about women who refuse to accept less than they deserved. Stories that remind us we're not alone. We're not crazy. We're not too sensitive. We're survivors, and we're building something better from the pieces men tried to destroy. If you or someone you know is experiencing domestic violence, the National Domestic Violence Hotline is available 24/7 at 1-800-799-7233. They provide confidential support, free resources, a reminder that help exists. You are not alone. You are not trapped. Impossible is just a word. Thank you for listening to Natalie's story. Thank you for being part of this community. Thank you for believing that women deserve safety, respect, and love that doesn't hurt. I'll see you in the next story. Until then, remember you deserve better. You've always deserved better, and it's never too late to choose yourself. Take care of yourselves, take care of each other, and never forget, the prison door was unlocked all along. You just needed to believe you deserve to walk out.